came out today by the hundreds to show their support, carrying flags and signs reading, "We love you, Gabby. Tucson goes with you. Come home soon." They watched an ambulance carrying Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords pass. Less than 2 weeks ago, they did not know if she would survive. Today, we learned from one of her doctors that inside that ambulance, she could hear their applause, and it made her smile and tear up. Our third story, as the Congresswoman begins her long and arduous rehabilitation process, her doctors offer unusually frank and hopeful insight into what's already a remarkable recovery. This morning, the Congresswoman was escorted from the Tucson University Medical Center to begin rehab in Houston. She was able to catch one last glimpse. That is she looking at the Santa Catalina Mountains before she left. The photo released by the Congresswoman's office showing Giffords in her hospital bed with her husband, Mark Kelly, at her side, accompanied by her husband and her mother, 2 staffers, and a doctor and a nurse. The Congresswoman was then taken first by emergency flight, then air ambulance to Memorial Hermann Hospital, a world-renowned brain trauma facility in Houston, at which she will begin her rehab process. And this afternoon, doctors there gave an update, offering stunning details of a transfer described as flawless. Dr. Randall Fries, traveling with Congresswoman Giffords.
When we were traveling through the streets of Tucson, there was several times we could hear applause in the ambulance with Gabby, and she responded very well to that, smiling and in fact even tearing a little bit. It was very emotional and very special.
Fries explained how the Congresswoman was fit for a special helmet to protect her brain during the transfer.
We had one fitted for her, and the first thing that Mark asked us was, "Hey, can you make us another one with the Arizona flag on it?" Because that's what she'd want. And we immediately got one the next day.
And the team of rehab doctors at Memorial Hermann sharing their observations on how well Giffords is doing.
She has great rehabilitation potential. I think those 3 words will sum it up. Great rehabilitation potential, great rehabilitation candidate. She will keep us busy, and we will keep her busy as well.
She looks spectacular in all ways. From a neurological point of view first, she came into the ICU and she was alert, awake, calm. She looked comfortable, very good movement on the left side of her body, and was very purposeful. And we were testing her vision, and she didn't like us shining the light in her eye and wanted to keep them closed. And these are all very good signs.
But the most emotional testimony of the afternoon came from her nurse at University Medical Center in Tucson who traveled with her, Tracy Colbert. Giffords arrived in Texas wearing Colbert's ring, and she did not want to give it back.
She was taking it off my hand, and it was fitting tightly, so I took it off for her and asked her if she wanted to see it, and she took it into her hand, and she was looking at it and turning it to see all sides of the ring, and then she put it on her finger to hold on to it. I'm going to miss her a lot. I mean, she's a very gentle person, and her personality is coming out with her touches, the way that she touches us, the way that she looks at us, and I'm very lucky to know her. I have a lot of hope for her, and I know she's going to do great. She's a very strong woman, and you can just see it.
That strength and personality seemed to amaze everyone in the room. Dr. Fries and Ms. Colbert adding the perfect anecdote to end it.
I'm happy to share with you that my exact words were, "Gabby, I'm proud to say I voted for you before, and I will vote for you again."
And she smiled really big that time.
Let's turn to Dr. Jonathan Slotkin of Washington Hospital Center. He's a neurosurgeon with advanced training in brain and spinal surgery. Dr. Slotkin, thanks for your time tonight.
Good evening, Keith.
I want to ask you first, not about the patient so much, but about those doctors, the ones in Houston. She looks spectacular, great rehabilitation potential, great rehabilitation candidate. She's going to do remarkably well over the next few months. Aren't most doctors in this situation, especially with a high-profile patient, really circumspect? I mean, these guys were just a little short of jubilant. What does that tell you about this?
Yes. You know, the first thing I would say about the doctors involved is that from everything I can see, the treatment has been first-rate, textbook treatment. But in terms of why the jubilance, I've thought about that myself over the last couple of days. I think it's threefold. The first is that she does have an excellent rehabilitation potential, and she's made a remarkable recovery. And even from the get-go, when she was following commands the day of surgery, very, very promising. But I think there's probably 2 other factors at play, too. One is that we doctors are human. I think we're looking at her outcome and feeling a real sense of joy inside, and her doctors have to really feel jubilation. But the third thing I've wondered about is to what degree, because I said to myself, sort of like you're implying, maybe you'd want to play your cards closer to the vest.
Right.
So I have wondered if there's been a little bit of a public or media pressure to sort of start to push things in this direction in a real positive light. But I think, by all means, she does have an excellent rehabilitation potential, Keith.
They got very, very specific. Her left side motion's really good. Her right leg is weak, but there's good tone, which suggests she might not walk on it, but she could stand on it. They're not sure about the right arm. I mean, I know I'm asking you to guess about a patient you've never actually seen, but does any of the detail that you've heard tell you anything about what her recovery ceiling might be?
If she was my patient with that description that you give that we've learned right now, I would say that the chance of a full recovery from a motor perspective is still on the table. But for me, if I was her doctor, I would think it was a home run if she ended up walking with a cane or walking with crutches. I would consider that to be an outstanding result given that description.
For want of a better term, what about the parts of her that make her Gabby Giffords? I mean, everything we've heard has hinted at this. She's got vision clearly, strong hearing, she's smiling, tearing up, she's responding to applause, so that part of the politician is intact. She's massaging her husband's neck and doing these complicated motor skill things with the nurse's ring, with the iPad, with an iPhone, and frankly, she seems in some cases to be goofing on people already. Can you assess by that how much of a patient like her has had their personality survive this trauma?
Well, at this stage, that would be very advanced.
Right.
Not unheard of, but advanced. And the emotion and personality pieces do seem like they're progressing very, very well. Now, to me, the biggest question over the next few months, and there's no way to answer it now, is I think we would all say there's a significant interval between I'm functioning in society, I'm a good family member, I can carry on a conversation, to the difference between that and a cognitive rehabilitation potential that allows you to perform as a U.S. Congresswoman. I don't think there's any way to know that now, but that'll be questions about decision-making, concentration, memory, things of that nature that there's no way we could know at this stage.
And the last part of this, the doctors say they've seen lip movement, but they'd only examined her for half an hour and they weren't willing to say that was an attempt to speak yet. Her husband says she's trying to speak. Do you have any guesses based on what we've seen on her potential ultimate speech capacity?
Sure, that's a great question. So, you know, if you look at this brain model, speech, everything in the brain is location. So speech production would be more far forward, and speech understanding would be sort of in this area. We know from the fact that she can follow commands that speech understanding seems to be fine. Now, because she has a tracheostomy in place, a breathing tube in her neck, the type she has in doesn't allow speaking, so we don't yet know if speech production's intact. I think one of the next moves over the next couple of days is going to be transitioning that tracheostomy to what we loosely call a talking trach,
right, and
then we'll really get a sense, but I don't think that's known right now.
Neurosurgeon Jonathan Slotkin, it's been extremely helpful, and thank you kindly for spending some of Friday night with us.
Thank you, Keith.